that it's important to get this stuff out, or at least put it out there.
Yeah.
It could because there's a lot of guys and women incarcerated that this potentially can help.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm all for that, you know.
Yeah.
And if there's anything good that could come from this towards them, I'm completely on board.
What is up, you guys? I am so tired, but I'm so excited to start today's Into the Industry because I have a very special guest. Oscar was a part of the Pawsitive Change Program, which, if you don't know what that is, it is a program where individuals take dogs who need homes into the prison system, and they are trained by the inmates, and it is a program that allows the inmates to work a trade. So dog training is a trade, and they develop those skills, as well as it gives them a pretty solid outlet from the world they're living in that current moment. So I'm super happy to introduce Oscar. And Oscar, so if you want to tell us, where were you located, and how long were you there for, if you don't mind sharing that?
Yes, I was located in Wasco State Prison. I was there approximately 1 year. Um, yeah, I was right there for 1 year.
Nice. So is that I know they do like a maximum, and then they do like, what is the prison like style like there? Or is that like, what is the tier, I guess?
Yeah, the Wasco is well, at least AR where I was located is a general population prison. It's a level 3.
Okay.
And I was there 1 year prior to coming from a level 4 maximum security prison.
Wow.
I came from New Folsom in Sacramento County.
Wow. Dang. And transitions are pretty hard, huh? Like going from one to the next.
Yeah, definitely. Dang. Because just a little bit about me, a little background.
Yeah.
I went to prison at the age of 17.
Wow.
And I stayed in level 4 general population maximum security prison until the 24th year of my incarceration.
Wow.
And on my 24th year of incarceration, my points had reduced enough for me to qualify to go to level 3.
Dang. Yeah, go ahead.
Which I then transferred over to Wasco State Prison on AR.
Dang. So can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So you were in there for quite a while then, like in general, altogether. And
I did a total of 25 years.
Jesus. Oh my God. I'm trying not to drop the F-bomb right now, but wow. Dang. Okay, so let me ask you kind of a fun question here. When you went in at 17, the outside world, what were your favorite things to do at that time?
My favorite things to do?
Yeah, like what did you do for fun? Didn't get you into trouble.
At 17 years old,
what was your favorite candy? And what was your favorite team to watch on TV?
I like the Lakers.
Nice.
At 17, I like hanging around with my friends. I like, just hanging out. And I wasn't no longer skateboarding, but at a younger age, I used to ride boards a little bit with some of my friends. But at 17, I was just hanging out, enjoying time with my friends. When the season was on, I would check out the Lakers.
Nice.
And yeah.
Cool.
And of course, I'm a Dodger fan. So.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, that's basically what I was doing. I mean, I would go to school, but as a 17-year-old kid, a lot of times you could find me at the bleachers.
Yeah, I was the same way, man. I don't know if you listened to the other ones where I was like, I was not a good student. I was like not about trying to stay in class. I too was hanging out with my friends and just like doing dumb stuff.
Right.
But well, it seems like you got in a sticky situation, and we won't touch on that, but you did some solid time, my friend. So yeah. When you moved around place to place, at what point like, I know there was probably a lot of points where you were just like, this is like, what am I going to do? Kind of at a loss. Hold on. I'm accepting the video. Hey.
Hi.
Hi. So, when you were kind of just like stuck, or feeling stuck. So I'm sure with the program with the dogs, hearing about that, what did that do for you? And like, how hard was it to get into that program?
Wow. By the time I got to Wasco State Prison, I had started the process of turning things around with myself.
Yeah.
And I was doing that by reading and going to self-help classes that they eventually started bringing back into the places that I was in.
Yeah.
But when I got to Wasco, I remember right before I got there, one of the COs that it was assigned to a place where I worked at which was the kitchen and New Folsom on Sea Yard.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he told me, "Hey, do you know where you're going? You guys train dogs over there?" And I told him,
that was the first you heard of it?
Yeah, I'm trying not to drop on F-bomb right now, but I was like, "Get the fuck out of here," Like,
yeah.
I asked him, like, "Who has dogs? You guys or us?"
Yeah.
And he said, "No, you guys, the inmates."
Oh my god.
So that took some processing for me to get my head wrapped around that. But when I finally got there, in fact, they had dogs down there. The Pawsitive Change Program was there, sponsored by Marley Smuts.
Yeah.
And when I got there, right away, because I knew some of the guys that were in the program, having been incarcerated for so long.
Yeah.
And they asked me, "Hey, bro, do you want in on this? Do you want to get an application and get interviewed for this? See if you could come in?" I go, "Yeah, definitely." I mean, oh my goodness, I can't even explain.
Yeah.
I can't even put into words how excited I felt, because I hadn't seen a dog. I hadn't touched a dog in so long. So
God, I couldn't imagine.
Other than having a dog come in and sniff around myself when they would bring him in.
Like, surreal, right? Like, just super surreal. And were the other inmates excited about the dogs as well, or were there inmates that were just like couldn't really care less, or everyone was like, "We want the dogs"? More dogs, the better.
On the yard that I was in, there was close to 1,000 inmates, and I don't remember seeing anyone that wasn't excited about them in some shape or form. It was just incredible having them in there.
Yeah.
I immediately filled out my application and submitted it.
Yeah. How long did that process take? Because I know everything with the system takes forever, right? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It took several months, because it took like 2 months, because I remember I got the application, I filled it out, I turned it in, and Stephanie Taylor, which is one of the trainers from Pawsitive Change, and Alan Lara, they go through they screen the applications. The facility also screens the applications as well.
Yeah.
Because we have to stay disciplinary free for a year in order to qualify.
Yeah.
So having been disciplinary free already for several years, I was at least in the running to be interviewed. Good. Or a person will get kicked out and won't even come to the door.
Yeah.
So I remember I was excited when they said in prison they call them ducats, which is basically a notice telling the person on such and such date you're set to be interviewed for the Pawsitive Change Program. And short from doing a backflip, I was like, hell yeah.
It's like a light at the end of the tunnel. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, like, they work with people who are, like, lifers, right? Or is it just long sentences?
The Pawsitive Change Program?
Yeah.
Well, there where I was at, they work with just the population that's there.
Okay.
But the population that was there was made up of a mixture of people, some lifers, and a lot of guys that were just doing 2-3 years in general population. Mm-hmm. And but I know that the group that when I was accepted into the group, the inmate, the incarcerated mentors, was made up of mostly lifers.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah,
that's insane. Yeah. Wow. So that's so cool. So you got accepted. What was that like? What was it like interviewing with them? Were you just like, holy crap, like just let me pet a dog? Like, what was that like?
It was incredible. I mean, it's hard it was hard for me to contain my excitement.
Yeah.
And I was just, I probably was matching Stephanie question for question. She would, you have any questions for me? And I would ask a question for her. Yeah. And she would like, at the end, she was like, Oscar, don't worry. Once the program starts, I'll be able to answer all these questions a lot better for you, because I had all these questions about dog training. And it was just surreal.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I mean, that's so awesome. And so when you were younger, did you have a dog, or was it just like the dogs were like this outlet? So you're like, I just need anything to kind of take my mind off what's going on, or, you know, what was the draw? Like, did you know anything about dogs?
I had a couple dogs as a kid, family dogs.
Yeah.
Being in the program, though, I came to find out that I knew very little about dogs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to just say that I thought dogs could understand when I would talk to them as a kid, I mean, that's something to demonstrate that I knew absolutely.
I love that. No, I love that, because that's the perspective of like the common. I'm sure you see it now that you train. Everyone's like, my dog loves me. And they're like, I tell it to sit 30 times and they know sit. And it's like, no, they don't know what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm sure all of that like started to click, especially since you had such an amazing team of people to help you.
Yeah.
All those people are incredible. I like follow them and just like look up to them so much. But yeah, I'm sure that was, you know, but I'm sure they guide you in that. So I also know that they match you guys with dogs based off, you know, your situation, your personality. What was it like to get matched with the dog that you got? Tell me about him or her.
Yeah, because it wasn't her. Her name was Porter, a mixed boxer pit bull mix, and us in the incarcerated men in the program, we changed her name to China, because we thought it fit her better. So,
and what does that mean? I don't speak a second language.
We called her China because we thought, I mean, hopefully this is, doesn't offend anyone.
Yeah,
we thought she looked a little Asian, so we still called her China. So just because she's a beautiful pit bull boxer mix, and she was actually adopted by one of the gentlemen in the program at the end of the training. So yeah,
that's so nice.
And it's actually interesting that you said how we are matched, depending on our energy and our personality, or our energy with that energy of the dogs. And I remember Stephanie telling me about that. Because she was telling me at the time I had all these questions, and I was constantly asking questions. I was constantly in my head. And she's telling me later on when I was teamed up with her. Yeah, I said, okay. Yeah, I got to appreciate it a lot better.
A little more comfortable, a little bit like, okay, I'll just follow suit here. Yeah, be cool. Yeah. But I'm sure with your experience of being like, you know, you guys are, everything you do is questioned. Every move that you make is watched. And in order to be thought of as a good guy, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, you have to like mind your P's and Q's. So it makes sense that you've been conditioned to just question every step you're gonna take, because the repercussions of making a wrong move, like we talk about how much time things taken there, can set you back big time. And so I understand where that, like, obviously I don't know from that perspective, but I can imagine that I'm careful as it is. You see me sitting here writing all this stuff down. I couldn't imagine being under that kind of pressure, and then be given like, here's this opportunity. You want to make sure you don't mess it up. So, I think
you described it pretty darn good, Sean.
Yeah, yeah.
That's interesting because sorry about that.
No, yeah, go ahead.
I found that typically just people who have a similar experience than I do understand what you just described, and I think that this is one of the first times that I've heard someone who, you correct me if I'm wrong,
Mm-hmm.
that hasn't been incarcerated for a long period of time express it the way you just did.
Yeah.
And that is, the way you just described it, I even felt myself relax the more I heard you talk right now, because I was like, damn, that's pretty spot on.
Well, I'll tell you, yeah. I have a huge problem with the system. I am it's so disgusting how swept under the rug it is. And even I could feel my heart starting to get it's pushing through my chest a little bit. Why I am so drawn to the program is because long ago I was I would watch shows on, they would have Lockup or whatever, and some would have programs like that, and I'd be like, we need to do this, this is important. And then I saw the Pawsitive Change Program doing it, and I was like, thank fucking God somebody is doing this, because I know from how I even came into the dog field. So I was a drug addict. I was a pretty bad drug addict, and the dogs saved me. And I just knew the power that held. And it's not to say that everybody who trains dogs are crazy. Well, yeah, we're a little crazy, but it's the good nature in our heart is translated through the dog almost.
Yeah.
And so I used to just consume information about what was going on in there. And, it just was a world that fascinated me, kind of like my dark side a little bit. So, it's just why I empathize and, I wanted to showcase this situation because it's incredibly important. And, talking about how those small steps and you could get huge repercussions of it. I'm sure there's just some serious, wounds that you carry in your soul from all of that. 25 years, and then coming out into the world that it is today and being I'm a dog trainer. It's just wild. But let's dive a little bit more into what it was like working with the dogs and things like that. And so you relaxed a little bit. You kind of got your hands on your pup. And so what was it like making that connection with her and teaching her these things? And what did you hear of her story? Tell us a little bit about her.
That when they brought in the dogs, they don't really give us any background, any history of the dogs.
Probably smart.
They just tell us they told us that they're rescues, and it was me and another incarcerated person that were teamed up with Gina, and we were just told that she was a boxer pit bull mix, and approximately a year old. And other than that, we didn't know anything about her. And in a way, even me thinking about it as I'm saying this to you, I felt thin as I feel right now. Just I was like, okay, she's meeting us how we're meeting her. She doesn't know anything about our past.
Yeah,
and
that's really cool.
We're meeting each other, and we're about to take a journey together in the place that we are at this moment. And because she didn't know anything about me or my co-trainer, so we were like, okay, it's fair, we're starting off like this. What we're gonna learn from right now forward.
Yeah, so. And that's how it definitely should be taught, dog training, for sure. Because a lot of people get hung up on the story, and you could probably relate where it's no, we're starting here, we're starting now. it just with every new day is a new day and a new battle.
Yeah.
And that's really awesome. So were you paired with someone to work with her? So you had a co-trainer.
Yes.
What was that like? Because
It was
yeah, go ahead.
it was actually it's an experience that I'm thankful for,
Mm-hmm.
because the guy that I was paired with, who we were co-trainers, is actually a good friend of mine.
Yeah,
Someone
that's
who
awesome.
I met early on in my incarceration, and we were both teenagers when we went into prison. And now
Mm.
me coming back into me coming to Wasco State Prison, we um, we saw each other as grown men now.
That's
And
crazy.
so that to me was, in a way, bittersweet, because I started to think of all the time he has spent in prison, and
Mm-hmm.
he still hadn't yet went home. That friend of mine was doing life without parole,
Yeah.
and but here I am, or here we are. At that moment, I was thinking, we're being assigned together
Mm-hmm.
to train a dog,
Yeah.
and so to me, it was actually pretty special. I
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome. And
yeah,
so I also know that it's one of the few programs, if not the only program, where you interact with other inmates who are not like you, I would say,
yeah,
correct?
correct.
Because everything in there is fairly segregated. Is that true? Is
Yes,
that by design, or is that by nature of just what goes on in there?
I will say it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Um,
So was it like scary to be, and it's like, I mean, I think it's okay to admit if it was scary to just kind of be like, okay, now this is kind of breaking that mold, and here I am in this situation and I'm learning as well alongside it. What was that like for you?
I was okay with it, but going back to something you in your description of what it might be like for someone that spends so much time in prison, you're always questioning things, or you're always wondering, okay, what's this about, or let me think about how I'm going to proceed forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because in prison, whether it's with administration, or whether the population that you house with,
Yeah.
um, you're thinking about what you're about to say, what you're about to do,
Yeah.
and how you're going to do it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, because it can, whether it's administration or the general population, there's yeah, you want to be careful. You want to be careful for yourself and just for the general public. In there.
Yeah.
So so because in prison, I communicating with people that don't look like us happens, especially with the people that have been there a lot longer, the
Yeah.
people that have been started a process of working on themselves. You start to identify with each other as people who are being impacted by a very similar thing,
Yeah.
and
Good.
so there it makes it easier, even though conditions are the way they are in prison. You end up finding yourself at work, at school, community college, whatever it is that you're getting into,
Yeah.
in these moments where you can have talks with people,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll start eventually notice, okay, I can speak with this person, and
Yeah.
it'll be as two people talking to each other,
Good. That's
not,
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's important because yeah, like I can imagine that kind of like careful footing into those situations. Man, and so what were like? Did you see any like evolutions of people and attitudes through the program? Like not even just yourself, but talk about maybe the other people in the program and what they were like and their story if you want, if you think they'd be happy that that's shared.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the program, even though that, like, going back to the comment that or what I just said about talking with people, different groups, or
Mm-hmm.
different races, the program made it possible for that space to be there.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a place for us to do it more comfortably than in other places in the prison. The dogs, the program, mainly the dogs, they soften people up a lot. They softened me up a lot, and were a lot of things, a lot of who we are privately began to be introduced in that space.
Like a little goofy, a little soft, a little like, oh, like the high pitched baby voice that you heard some dudes start using. Did you hear any of that?
As people, or let me say as guys, I spend a lot of time suppressing my emotions, hiding my emotions, not talking things that I'm feeling. And I came to realize that I'm not the only one. Other men have lived very similar.
Oh yeah.
And I've come to realize a lot of us men are raised that way.
Yeah.
And it's just taken to a whole new level in prison because of the hyper masculinity energy that's in there.
Yeah.
And so that program, it was a place for people to be silly. It was a place for people to be funny. It was a place for people to talk about their first dog with people they normally wouldn't be talking to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So there was a guy named Mosley. He was one of the incarcerated mentors, and I remember through the dogs, me coming around and asking him questions, and comfortable as comfortable as I was asking someone a question that looked like me.
Yeah. And
to me, it helped me with what I was doing with dog training. It made me a better dog trainer, opening up and asking any one of the incarcerated trainers a question when I was having maybe a hard time with something that I was doing, or building relationship with trust or respect. And
and just kind of being a little vulnerable, like, hey, I don't know right now. I need to ask for help, because I'm sure that's not something you're like supposed to do, putting in quotes in there, right? Yeah.
No, definitely.
That's awesome though, because dog training is this ever-flowing like thing. It just is. I don't know what's going on with it right now. It's getting kind of crazy, but you just got to kind of flow with it and do it your way. It's like an art. It's, you just find your style of it. So yeah. And it's kind of like you ask those questions and you find what you like, and you pick and choose and find what feels right.
Right.
Yeah. So you probably made friends through the dogs as well, like just watching people with their dogs and encouraging each other. Like, that's something that was probably a little different, other than like other inmates are probably excited for other inmates who get to leave and go out, right? But other than that, it was a place for you guys to celebrate one another and these little wins, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. You know, that's interesting, Sean, because I know that I remember one of the incarcerated mentors told me one time, not with Gina, but with another dog, because I was in the program 2.5 rounds. I graduated 2 classes, and I was in the middle of my 3rd one when I broke.
Nice.
And I remember one of the incarcerated mentors told me early on that I should practice with my dog near other dogs that were further along in their training, because they learn from each other. And I noticed it was also true with us humans. We learn from each other as what's okay and what isn't.
Yeah.
How we should walk the dog and how we shouldn't. Am I holding my arm too tight, or am I relaxed?
Yeah.
Am I walking with confidence and assertiveness, or am I showing that I'm nervous and and what's going on?
Yeah.
And so that's actually really
It's like
interesting.
shadowing, like what we would call shadowing, right? Like how you shadow other trainers and you're like, okay, see what you're doing there, and like mentoring, right? But with the dogs, it's like, no, that's good. That's a good point. And so, like, I think another good thing to kind of talk about is now you're breaking into the industry outside, and that is like, talk about the transition from prison to prison. But now after 25 years, it's like the gate opens and you walk into the world. What was that like? And how terrifying was that? I mean, it's got to feel good, but it's got to also feel like, holy shit, a lot.
I mean, that last part, that holy shit part, like encapsulates the whole thing. Sean,
and you came out in the middle, like you got out when? April? In the middle of the pandemic, this other stuff started popping off, and now it's just everything is collapsing. And
actually, I paroled on Christmas Eve. And
okay, so you saw the whole thing crash.
I saw the whole thing crash.
Yeah.
I paroled on December 24th of 2019.
Wow.
And
Christmas Eve.
I went on Christmas Eve, and it was pretty darn awesome because I got a chance to be with my family.
Oh my God!
Although I was sent. Yeah, so I still have clothes with tags on it right now.
Oh yeah, because then a little bit later we couldn't go anywhere. Oh my God.
It's pretty interesting because I was very emotional, very happy to find out that I was going to go home.
Yeah.
But now something very interesting began to happen because I remember telling one of the guys who I came to know pretty good growing up in prison with them. I told him I feel like when I first came into prison, I had to get used to the prison environment.
Yeah.
I remember now it just feels like I'm going in reverse.
Yeah.
Like I'm going in reverse now. I'm feeling what I'm feeling. What I felt early on, but just in reverse now.
Yeah.
Now I'm having all these feelings of, okay, now I have to relearn how to be outside, because I remember when I first went into prison, how I started to notice that gradually it started, thoughts of the outside or memories of my experiences outside became less and less.
Wow.
And eventually got to a point where I had to consciously remember or think of things to remember them.
Yeah.
And because typically now what I was thinking about was things inside the prison.
Yeah.
And so I had if it wasn't the college courses that I was taking or something or people that I was corresponding with, I would be like, people that I had met that I knew from the outside were, hey, remember when this happened? I would be like, oh, I do remember that. But I had to search for it. So
yeah.
Coming out, I started having this bittersweet experience where I was feeling very similar, like I said, to early on. And I began to wonder, am I gradually going to forget, or have to think harder to remember things from inside eventually from, being out here?
What are the things?
I found that very interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just like straight up conditioning. They take away access to anything outside. So it's like they just condition you to be in the box. And what are the things that you would like to remember from that experience of prison? Like if they're, what are the things that like made it positive for you? And do you think it's similar for other inmates other than the dogs? Like what are those things?
Do I think that some of the experiences that I had in there, they were positive?
Yeah.
You said?
Like maybe a moment where you were like, okay, I need to like change and I need to have some growth. And like, cause it sounds like you did a lot of like, the work that doesn't get done sometimes in there, like you applied yourself. And so like, there was probably a moment of like awakening that happened. And then what it was like to kind of hit those little milestones and those little goals. Cause it, at 25 years when you're looking down that tunnel, it's like, oh my God, where is the light? But you hit these little notches, it sounds like, that kind of climbed you closer and closer. And here we are. So maybe talk about those things for, where did you find that hope?
That's interesting. That's actually really cool that you described it the way you described it, Sean, because with me, it hasn't been one thing that just, boom, it changed things for me.
Yeah.
It's been a gradual benchmarks throughout my time that led up to me saying, you know what, it's time for me to make a change because I'm no longer happy the way I've been living. And that took actually some building up. And I remember early on when soon after I went into prison, I found myself into a smaller part of the prison when you're in isolation or segregation.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember I was 19 by that time, and I was kept there until I turned 21 years old. And I remember being there, I started to witness other people that didn't look like me going through things that I was going through, maybe with the guards, or mundane things from inside of prison, of not being provided sanitary equipment or toilet papers.
Yeah.
So when I started seeing that, I remember making it a conscious effort to be polite with people until even if I didn't know them. And I remember I would talk with people even if I didn't know them and they didn't look like me or I didn't house with them. I would be like, hey, good morning, or good morning, sir. And eventually they started responding that way to me.
Yeah.
And because what I started to experience and what I started to see that other people were experiencing gradually began to give me the understanding that, hey, you know what? Again, we're people experiencing many of the similar things, and we're being held in very similar conditions inside of a 6x9 box.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it prompted me to think, you know what? If people that are not dressed like me isn't going to talk to us or talk to me, or people that are dressed like me in a way that is treating us like a human being, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I remember that starting off back then in 1996.
Dang.
And I remember thinking that, and that was one of the early things that happened in my experience that really impacted me. Witnessing other people being treated physically unhumanely, and me looking at that and thinking, okay, I've gone through that.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first experiences that I had.
Yeah. Would you say it was kind of like, and we don't have to treat each other like that. We already get enough of that crap from these guys. Like, we just need to at least be cool with each other as best that we can.
Definitely. And that was one of the early seeds, I would say.
Yeah.
That planted that plant.
Yeah.
That eventually grew into me thinking in those terms of saying, you know what, let me constantly looking for ways to resolve conflict resolution or work things out.
Yeah.
Because precisely for that reason.
Yeah. Must have taken a lot of patience at times. Like a lot of patience, because again, like getting back to that, like one step forward, two steps back, right? At times, like it's just like itching closer and closer.
Yeah, one wrong move or one misstep can set you back 10 years.
Fuck, dude.
So, and it sounds to me you understand that quite well.
Yeah.
To actually live in that.
Oh my God.
It's a trip, to say the least.
And it must just totally warp people, and like, so I mean, a little getting away from the dogs, but I am sure you saw a lot of like other kids come in, and then their mind just became just like unhinged from the realization of how all of a sudden they became as minuscule as, like, I don't know, this, it became just like an object. And it's just like, okay, let's just like, oh, we could leave it there for a few weeks and blah, blah, blah. But in this regard, it's like 10 years of your life. And it's up to these people who like get to just read something on their little booklet, and then like they come in and talk to you for 5 minutes. They don't care what mood or what you just came from, and they make their decision based off that.
It's tough.
Oh,
I
man.
can even imagine all that, is going through someone's experience on that end of it. But, I mean, yeah, it's basically reading a person's file and then coming in and having an interview similar to what we're having right now.
Yeah.
And then making a decision of whether up or down, he's staying or he's going.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
brutal, man. I know. Yeah. And I like, again, it's fascinating to me how obscenely brutal it is. But as we can see from the world around us, I'm starting to realize like things are a lot more brutal everywhere than we had ever known. And now it's just like it's cracking open and we're seeing it all. And it's just getting really, really terrible. But I mean, just getting back to like the dogs, because I know we could go down that deep, dark path for a while. But I do want to just, bring it back to the dogs. But so like, yeah, you guys, you get out and you have a really hard time even starting off as it is. And now you have this business to take care of and also promote. And also, right. Like, where do you draw the line of letting people know where your story starts from? And do you? And I saw that you do have a GoFundMe. And is that, to generate for your business and everything? And we'll share that and all that. But tell me about what it's like, obviously being hit with that wave of now I'm in the real world, trying to figure out life. And then all of a sudden being a business man, because it's hard at that. And then with the extra layer, like, so what are the things you go through on your day to day trying to structure that out for yourself?
My goodness.
Yeah.
I'm just coming out here. Have you ever seen there's a movie by Jim Carrey. It's called The Truman Show.
Yes.
And
totally.
He grows up in this movie studio. That's like and he grows up thinking that place is real.
Yes.
He comes to find out that it's not.
Mm-hmm.
When I came home, I felt a little bit like that. I felt like I had left somewhere that I thought it was real.
Yeah.
And I step into a world that looks like props.
Yeah.
And I start seeing buildings. I start seeing cars. I seeing people.
Like sensory overload, right?
There's a sensory overload to a degree that I can't even describe. I remember not even being an hour away from the prison. My two sisters picked me up, and they're driving me home. And we stopped at I don't even remember the name of the store, but we stopped at this place.
Yeah.
Was there was merchandise all the way like higher, like really tall.
Yeah.
Like really high up. And everything is so colorful, and there's all kind of pictures. And I remember one of my sisters turned around and looked at me. And she said, "Are you all right?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah," but I felt like I was being bombarded or drowning.
Like a panic attack, almost, right? Like just like, whoa, this is like a lot at once, and like, yeah, because it's a serious mental state that you were in. Just like everything's gray and like chrome or steel. And then, that's really interesting, describing the packages and the colors and all that. And so but go ahead.
And even though things have gotten better, and now I still look both ways several times as I'm crossing the street.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get hit by a car. I haven't been out here in so long, but there's still moments where I feel overwhelmed by an experience, but I'm gradually getting better. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it'll ever go away.
Yeah.
I've so far I've been in there longer than I've lived out here so far. So, it's a learning process. It's a process, And luckily, I have an awesome support system. My family, my girlfriend, two of the dog trainers that I met and that I was training under in prison, Stephanie Taylor and Alan Lara, they've been amazing.
Yeah.
As far as continuing their, we're friends out here.
Good.
And we talk to each other. They give me advice on training, and they're so supportive with the business and telling me, talking to me about it and giving me advice. And I think that it's been such a difference having this team made up of the people that I just mentioned. I mean, even the friends that I've been making out here, I couldn't have made it up. You know, the people that I've met and have said, "Hey, bro, let's stay friends."
Yeah.
I've been like, "Get the fuck out of here!"
I'm out.
Straight up.
Yeah.
Because at 17. If you would ask me then, you think you're gonna be friends with this person or this person or this other person, I would have told you this. What I just said right now about this, like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't see that. And just my support,
yeah, you have a powerhouse, because those people they're seriously admirable in the business and in the industry. Like, I think everybody sees that program, no matter what your ideals on methods are, and are just like, that is badass. And like, you know, it's a lucky thing to have that, as well as your family. You know, that's really awesome. Yeah. And so how do you kind of like integrate like training dogs these days now? So it's a lot of market. You could see like it's a lot more paperwork sometimes than it is dogs. It's like signing the forms, getting the info from the people. What has that been like? Because now you're just interacting with people to work with dogs, and it's like, whoa, it's a lot, huh?
I'm telling you, just today I went to purchase some notebooks and different things, because I'm barely starting to put myself out there gradually, and I'm starting to find out what you're describing. Like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna need this, I'm gonna need that. I need to keep logs. I need to like what you mentioned earlier about the GoFundMe. I'm like, okay, I have to keep logs of what they have and as my budget for the things for the merchandise and things for the dogs.
Yep.
And things related to them, food, beds, this, that, and so just that alone, not even mentioning clients, it's again, potentially being drowned in paper.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot to start. And I used to work for like a big company, and then I left. I was like, screw this. I don't believe in these methods anymore. They were very like pro-positive, and I don't know if you know about all that going on in the industry. And it was like I couldn't help the dogs that I knew truly needed help. And I was being held back from that. So I went to start off my own, and it was that very like, oh God, I need to make business cards. And then everybody asks if I have a website, and I'm like, ugh. Like, that's a whole nother cost. It's like, who's going to go to the website? Just email me, you know? And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, but people like want a website, they want a card. And I don't know, you could dress that stuff up to the nines and have like the prettiest cards and the prettiest website, but if you don't know your shit, like, it's not going to go good for you. So, I mean, the biggest thing I would say is just like really like work with dogs, even if you don't have any like clients, just like work with dogs that you can. I saw you're working a dog named Bear. So who's Bear?
Exactly what you just said right now. Like, I came home and Bear is my nephew, my nephew's dog. He's a 1-year-old mini Doberman Pinscher mixed. And he I came home and he introduced me to Bear, and he tells me that, I mean, he's been hitting 100 in energy since he was a puppy. So he said, "Go at it,
Yeah.
And if you want, please train him."
Yeah.
And so I that's who I've been training right now. And
that's cool.
Amazing. He's actually such a great little guy, and my nephew. I come home, and he's I see him applying some of the methods that I'm using on Bear.
Yeah.
So this has been a way for me to connect with my nephew. He's 18 years old, so he was born since I've been away.
That's
so
wild.
It's been so again here's a dog that's functioning as a bridge to now to connect and strengthen my relationship with my nephew.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's even the process of training Bear right now. It's even making it that much more special.
Yes. So what are your goals? If you could say pandemic and systematic structure failure aside, what would be the ultimate goal with the dogs or with life in general? What are your thoughts there?
I think I'll say with the dogs, because I think it goes hand in hand with me, with my own transition out here, because seeing how much the dogs helped me when I was in prison and I was in training in the program in there, they were helping me with a lot of my stuff, healing.
Yeah.
And I remember both Alan and Stephanie reminding me, if the dog is observe and assess, if the dog is doing A, B, or C, or X, Y, and Z, check with yourself to see what's going on inside of yourself first before you try to go and correct what's going on with the dog.
Yeah.
And so I can't even tell you, Sean, how helpful that was for me while in the program inside the prison.
Yeah.
And when I think back to that, the things that I still need in order to, as I'm building my life, it's going to come on the foundation of building my business with the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be the dogs that are ultimately going to be what helps me.
Yeah.
And it continues to help me.
Yeah.
And so me really of saying, okay, sink or swim.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so funny. I say that all the freaking time. That was a big motto for me when I lived elsewhere on my own and was just kind of a fuck up. Sink or swim is one of my favorite things, because it's you just gotta figure it out. You just gotta figure it out. Oh man. Yeah, so good.
Nice. So the my how I'm thinking around this is exactly that. You know what? It's time to jump in there. Just jump in. Don't tie yourself to tell yourself no. Just jump in there.
Mm-hmm.
Because this working is going to help me more than it's going to help dogs. Even though that I very much want to help them.
Yeah.
But the reality is they're going to end up helping me a lot more. They're going to help me heal. They're helping me heal right now. So
So I know before we started, you touched on it could help a lot of people who are still inside, just this message and what the program did for you. Is there anything you want to touch on that kind of before we start to close it up? Is there anything you want to say about the people inside, such as I don't know, I just feel like you were talking about where you had that moment of clarity where it's hey, we all get treated so bad. Why don't we treat each other okay? Do you see a lot of that, or that does the media kind of blow out the prison system as well, and how truly harsh you guys are to each other? Or obviously it's got to be harsh because it is what it is. But do you also see other people trying to find common humanity in there? What are your thoughts on that?
I think as far as what's reported on the media, it depends what the outlet is, who's reporting it.
Yeah.
I noticed that it depends on who's reporting it. Mm-hmm. That will determine what the spin is.
Yeah.
And as far as inside, growing up in there and going through the changes that I've gone through and making decisions to make changes where I'm being of help to myself and to others now, which is, and then the program allowing me to even deepen that and deeper trusting and getting to know people.
Yeah.
I got to meet some people. I got to know some people that, in my opinion, are pretty awesome people. And because of a situation or an action taken when they were 15, 16, in some cases, like with me, some of those individuals are never coming home. And some of those individuals have a chance, like I did, to potentially go home, but after 25 years or 30 years. And to me, a program like Pawsitive Change can help someone who's already made a decision that to live the way that I was living when I first came into prison isn't good for me, to continue this process. So I can either continue to live that way and be unhappy, or I could change and potentially not being as popular as I once thought I was. There's a lot of this that have been knowing in my head.
Yeah. And you'll and also getting back to, like, you were talking about mirroring energies and things. It's like you, with that mindset, you start to collect and become popular with the people you actually kind of want to surround yourself with. Like, the energy you put out starts to collect the other good energy. But yeah, go ahead, continue. I just had that thought, so I was like...
Definitely. Sean, it's incredible to me because it's really interesting, because a lot of the guys that I grew up around, I noticed that I received a lot of influence or a lot of inspiration from a lot of the guys who I saw as a young person lived in a very similar way that I was living, and now I was seen as an adult living in a better way, in a less destructive way, and actually being of service.
Yeah.
And I started imagining that existing in here, because they were making it happen in their own lives.
Yeah.
So in that way, other individuals in the prison seeing me in the process that I was in.
Yeah.
I remember having conversations, or even in moments talking with people that were very similar with the thoughts that I was having, or even the talks that I was having early on in my time with people that were making efforts, especially back then when it wasn't popular.
Yeah.
It was less popular to want to change.
Yeah.
And so it's something that takes a lot of emotional courage, and it takes like I learned in the Pawsitive Change Program, it takes a lot of understanding ourselves to really step out.
Yeah.
And align my actions with what I say I believe in.
Yeah.
But I think that this program is definitely very important because to give a chance to the people that are in there and they have made a change, this can deepen their understanding,
solidify it, and like really make it like it click. Like, even if it's a wandering thought. And that's what I meant. Like, and it's just, I saw for a while they were trying to get more legislation and funding and things like that. And, I'm sure with the pandemic, it became really gridlocked, unfortunately. And those guys in there are now kind of casualties to the world right now, because the focus and the funding and everything, like, of course, that's the first thing to dry up. And I mean, I don't know or follow what's going in there right now, but I'm sure it's probably hard days right now.
It's gotta be, because if they're not allowing things being the way they are out here, they're not allowing a lot of things go on in there, and it's gotta be. Having been in there that long, I can imagine some of the thoughts that are coming up, because wondering if they're going to make it through this.
I know.
And I can't even believe the anguish that they must is.
Yeah, it's got to be.
It's so important because for this type of program to exist in there, because even though there's a lot of there's funding that started to be directed to prisons as far as community college and other self-help things in order to many of us that are in there of our people, of our citizens that are in there, and they've been aging in there, and in a lot of cases since they were kids. And there's some money now being redirected, but in my experience, there isn't anything in the 25 years that I spent in there that comes close to the Pawsitive Change Program, because what the Pawsitive Change Program did or does is introduce a person. It introduced me to a curriculum that paralleled with my experience, and it gave me a chance to apply it in real time.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that was theoretical.
And there was something real cute on the end of the leash, huh?
Yeah.
Like adding the silly factor, I think, is something that just kind of like took everything that you guys were thinking in that moment in prison, kind of flipped it, because it's like, okay, yeah, we can learn, we can like do school, but now there's this silly thing on the end of the leash, and it's like, all right, let's goof around a little bit, let's make light of it.
Definitely, I remember early on in prison, when I first started having ideas about changing, one of the tools that I incorporated was meditation, and to help me along with that. And I remember mentioning it to one of the trainers. I mentioned it to that training with a dog, working with a dog is a lot like sitting on your mat and meditating
in the moment.
Because as you know, the leash works like an umbilical cord. As soon as you touch it, I touched it. Best believe that dog knows how I feel.
Yeah.
In real time, it knows if I'm not feeling good. It knows if I'm feeling nervous. It knows if I'm not clear about what I want.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, so it's constantly having me to observe and assess constantly myself. And to me, it just ratcheted up that sitting on a mat thing.
Yeah.
They just ratcheted it up, like pay attention.
Yeah.
What are you doing now, right now?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
To be that was, talk about an experiential class.
Yeah.
That was like awesome.
I know.
To me,
I wish it could reach more people. It just sucks, like, with how, like, it's like, there's only so many places that, like, those bodies can go, and then having the people, it's like, I'm sure it takes some really, really, hardy individuals to go through that process that they were doing, and I mean, it's just got to be something you really believe in, and that's why it's so admirable. But yeah, so I'll kind of start winding down just to kind of close it out. But do you have any questions for me? That's always one of the things I ask.
What got you interested in the dog industry or dogs?
So it's a really funny story. When I was a little girl, I was not allowed to have a dog, and the only thing I wanted was a dog. I was 6 years old, and I'd carry around this book called 140 Breeds of Dogs, and I'd read it, and I'd like learn about all these different types of dogs and their grooming situation and their temperaments. And every Christmas would come, and I'd leave like clippings of the dogs that needed to be adopted under my dad's door, and it was like it was just always a hard no. And then I turned 18 and I went to the shelter and I got a dog. And then it was like, okay, what do I do with this Rottweiler, And I unfortunately had to rehome the Rottweiler. The Rottweiler came into someone had like given the dog somewhere, and I realized it was too much dog for me, and I had to rehome it, and it was so devastating to me because I'd spent my whole life like wanting a dog. So then I started working at a doggy daycare, and like kind of learned some skills there. And then I got my dog a little later, when I was 19, and just kind of started working the dogs from there. Again, I was a drug addict, and when I started working at the daycare, I was kind of coming off some shit, and I like the only thing that really kept me grounded was the dogs, and the only thing that made me want to like show up to something every day was the dogs. And I knew if I didn't quit my shit, I would lose that job, and I would lose the dogs, and that like broke my heart, and I quit cold turkey. It was insane. It was insane. That summer I was a nutcase, but I had the dogs. Yeah. Any other questions?
My last question is, where do you think it comes from, your passion, or your that feeling that told you, you know what, it's important for me to interview Oscar, someone who was in prison this long?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, like I mentioned, I have always been like really, like it fires me up to think about, like I told you before we started, the first person I ever dated was someone who had gotten out of the system. And it was just a real short sentence for him, but I saw the absolute mental toll it took on him. And it was someone that I, loved very much at that time. And just watching when we would get stopped by the cops, and then they'd run his name, and it would just become this terrorizing situation of like, is he going to come back with me or not? And like I could feel my voice shaking from that. And it was just like, at first I didn't understand. I'd be like, oh, the cops are stopping us, and I'm sure, look, like now I'm a white woman, so I'm just like, oh no, just be cool. And like, but it was not that situation. And that experience layered in with, we parted ways, and then I just became really fascinated that someone could lock people in cages and think that it's gonna like help them with their self-development and not do bad things. It's an insane thing to me. But it just is a system that is so set in stone from way long ago that just never evolved. It's like, here, we don't know what to do with these people, let's put them here, and nothing there is changing. That to me was fascinating in itself, that mindset. So I used to binge watch Lockup and things like that and just be like, damn, this is like really what they're doing. And yeah, that layered on top of like watching the Pawsitive Change Program do what they do and just being so fired up about that. And then when I saw their post that you had gotten out, I was like, I had heard them interview the guy who runs Marley's Mutts. So I follow Tom Davis. I don't know if you know who that trainer is. He's someone I admire a lot. And he had interviewed someone who does Marley's Mutts. And when I saw that you got out, I was like, this is what we need to actually talk about, is what it was like inside and what the hell it did to help you, because that's such an important perspective. So it was like, I mean, I was like, hey, do you want to talk? Like, I was just about it. Yeah, no, it was, I think it's, not only do I know the power of what dogs can do to change a human being, I think people don't understand that when it comes to just them having a pet. Like, the power of a dog in a setting like that is huge. It's such a huge power. Like you were saying in the very beginning, like there wasn't a person on the yard of all those people that wasn't just interested, at least in the dogs, and who wasn't just like, oh, and just having to break that mold of like, oh, it's silly and such a serious place to give you an outlet to grow. That's the most important story that could be told. So that's why.
I'm very happy that this interview happened.
Yeah. I know, even as tired as we are.
my props to you. I wish you a lot of success. I
You
continue
too.
success. I wish you continued success, and it's just the things that you shared with me before this interview, and everything you just said right now. I mean, you've definitely been in the trenches digging, and I wish you the very best, and I'm very, very honored and appreciative of the persistence that you came after it, because who's this, and I'm coming out of prison after I don't trust anybody.
I feel you, man. It doesn't, just because I've been out here doesn't mean I trust a goddamn soul either. I'll tell you that much. But
that's work that I'm doing on myself.
Yeah, same. We're in this together, man. Like, I feel you on that one. But I am just as happy to have had you on and hear that perspective. And definitely, if you have any questions, like when it comes to client relations, like I'm good at that, and I know how to talk to my people. And if you ever have questions, if you have those difficult clients, if you have people who are like, they want to throw in the towel because things aren't working, and you don't want to like totally succumb to that and want to know how to phrase it, definitely let me know. I'd be happy to help. And I'll throw a few bucks your way so you could get a planner. A planner is a big thing you'll need in dog training, okay? If there's anyone that knows me, they know my schedule is like, I need my schedule to be rolled on a point, So there's one last question I have for you, okay? And then we'll close out with this. But thank you again so much for being on, and thank you so much for your kind words. It really means a lot to me because it's something I believe in. I really want to just educate as many people as I can about every avenue that I can when it comes to dogs. So I appreciate you. So the last question is, do you have any words of wisdom for anyone out there that may be struggling right now to find strength to move forward?
I think that what's helped me in there, and what's helped me out here, nothing's permanent. And whatever it is that I'm going through in the moment, it seems like it's worse than what it is in my experience many of the times. And I just remember to think, this isn't gonna last forever. Mm-hmm. And just that reminder and the experience of seeing it end, transition, is what's helped me keep my cool and just practice some patience and to sit, even when things feel like they're wild under my feet, and they're prompting me to do something else than what it is that I'm telling myself, which is to sit. Mm-hmm. And just remember that too will pass. Yeah. Even when it seems that it doesn't feel good at all. Yeah. That too will pass. Yeah.
And sink or swim.
Yeah, sink or swim. Right on. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep. Put that on the church, John. Sink or swim. Again, thank you. Yeah. Because what you've been doing and what you're doing right now, I can't help but imagine that it's gonna help a lot of our brothers and sisters. They're still inside of a cubicle in one of our many prisons in California and throughout the United States. Yeah. And so thank you.
Yeah. I hope to maybe I could talk to one of the people of the program and see what's going on with the COVID situation getting in there. I'll try to reach out to them, but thank you so much for being on. I'm going to let you get some sleep because I know it's been a long day for us both, but do stay in touch and let me know if you need anything, okay?
Thank you, Sean. All right. Thank you. And the feeling is mutual. Stop by and say hi once in a while, and I'll do the same.
I will. I do get pretty busy, but I'll just if you like anything at all, and if I see a funny dog meme, I'll send it to you. Okay? Those are the best. Okay. All right, Oscar. You have a good
Shout out
night.
shout out to Positive Change and everyone, the whole Positive Change family, and all our incarcerated brothers and sisters too. I send a shout out to all of them.
Yes, awesome. All right, man. You have a good night, okay? Take care, my man.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Amazing. So amazing.